It's time for Top Story on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
Well, normally this Saturday morning show focuses on the week's past top story. This week we're talking about the upcoming week's top stories. That revolves around the election. The guests today are Steuben County Administrator Mark Alger, Hornell Mayor Sean Hogan, and Hornell Republican Leader John Buckley. Also Hornell's Green Party mayoral candidate Joe Duffy. Here in segment one, we're talking about the vote Tuesday on the county charter, and our thanks to County Administrator Mark Alger for coming on.
Hey, it's great to be here, Brian.
Mark, from what I can tell from reading it, there's a couple of big things out of the county charter. It replaces the county administrator job. If it's approved, if the charter's approved, the county administrator becomes county manager. Also, the charter replaces the county treasurer job with a finance commissioner job. The finance commissioner becomes appointed instead of an elected position. What are your thoughts on the county legislature choosing a treasurer versus the voters choosing the treasurer?
Well, I certainly can't find fault with the voters choosing a treasurer. I think really the issue long-term for the county has been we've been fortunate that the voters and the county have had highly qualified treasurers over the years. You don't really need to look too far away to see counties where they've not been as fortunate and have had treasurers who have had significant financial issues develop within the county because they just weren't up to the task. So one of the reviews that we did was of the organizational structure to really determine what the needs of the county are, and we have a $185 million budget. And the concern that the legislature had was to make sure that we had highly qualified people managing the county's finances and to assure that going forward, the money management people were in place to effectively guard the taxpayers and secure those funds that the county handles on a routine basis going forward. So the legislature chose to propose to have a commissioner of finance put in place with a specific set of qualifications which revolve around, dealing with both accounting and investment and the finances of the county generally as qualifications for that position, and feel that gives the county a solid base to build upon into the future. The other thing that I think is just as important for the county in the charter that the Commissioner of Finance provides is a check and a balance on whether it's a county manager or county administrator. It gives a check and a balance on that position of county manager to assure the legislature that the finances are not only in order, but if there's something wrong or awry with the county manager, that there's another official on duty every day here within the county structure who can report to the legislature that there are issues developing. So it's a check and a balance system. It's one of those things I think that is a natural in government to build in some kind of a check and balance, and that I think is key to and one of the reasons why you see that proposed in this charter.
Now, Pat Donnelly, the current treasurer, is he expected to stay on that job as finance commissioner if the voters support a charter, as Donnelly is the current treasurer, or would that be subject to the Steuben County Legislature? How does that work?
Well, that's a good point, and I think the expectation is that the current treasurer would transition to Commissioner of Finance. He's endorsed the concept of going to an appointed position. The legislature, while obviously they ultimately will make the final determination, has indicated that they expect that Pat would be the person that at this point would continue in that role. But certainly they have to make that appointment prior to the January effective date.
If the county voters support the charter, how does this affect the role of the county manager versus the county administrator? What would the changes be?
The major changes, I think, are more in form than they are in substance. The charter provides that the manager would select and appoint department heads subject to the confirmation by the legislature. That's kind of a key difference from what we do now. Currently, as an administrator, I really do the recruitment, do the screening, and I bring to the legislative committees of the board a candidate or two, and ultimately they make the final selection and appointment. So if, for example, for some reason we have an issue with one of the county department heads, the legislature really is the appointing authority. So any action that we would have to take, for example, in a disciplinary proceeding, would have to be actually taken by the legislature as a whole. It couldn't be taken by the county administrator. With a manager form of government, it could be taken by the manager. The manager could actually undertake the disciplinary proceeding because they're actually the appointing authority. Now, certainly anything that they would do would be done in conjunction with the county legislature, but just that's a subtle difference, but it's a key difference for the operational aspects of it, and it makes it a much more, I think, simple, much more straightforward process for people to understand.
Critics like outgoing county lawmaker Tom Ryan say that the wording of the charter is too vague. Right, and on term limits, that's an issue that came up with one person that opposed to it. Right now, county lawmakers can run for 3 terms, a total of 12 years. Your thoughts on that as far as the charter goes?
Well, the charter itself doesn't change any of those components of the current situation. So the term limits, the actual districts that are involved, the districts that county legislative districts that are currently in place remain. The number of legislators that are currently elected remains the same. The 4-year staggered terms remain the same. So as far as the legislature itself, this charter does not change any of those components.
One supporter of the charter is Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Palmisano said to me that we were talking about the charter, and he said one thing he likes about it is it would give a county manager a lot more ability to deal with the state legislature. How would that work, Mark?
Well, I think one of the things that he's really alluding to is that the manager is in a better position to know day to day what's going on within the county organization, and I think the manager really then has the ability to communicate effectively with our representatives, whether it's our state assemblyman or senator or other elected officials, either at the federal or state level.
Mayor Sean Hogan was speaking to you about the charter at Monday night's Common Council meeting. One point that he brought up is the town of Irwin is now larger than many other towns in Steuben County. It's the 3rd biggest sized town, I believe. If the charter is approved and the Steuben County legislative map lines, the district maps for the legislators, are redrawn afterwards, I think what Hogan was kind of aiming at was, will we have the problem of the eastern part of Steuben County dominating county government, as Mayor Hogan kind of alluded to?
Well, certainly, I think he's talking about a reapportionment plan, and we don't have in this charter a proposal for reapportionment. If there's a plan put forward, it has to be based on population. So any change to any district is really reflective of the population within the area. Actually, when you look at the county as a whole, there's been some shifting of population across the county, but really there hasn't been a shifting that would change, if you will, the east versus west population that greatly. The districts themselves may realign a little bit, but I don't see them changing so significantly that you'd have a concern about the east having more control over it than the west, or the west more than the east. I think that it's going to remain fairly balanced. We currently actually have in place, as you know, a weighted voting system which corrects for that population differential between districts, and would anticipate that anything that we would put in place in the future would probably have the same sort of a weighted voting system to correct for any disparity amongst the population variations within districts. So I don't really see that as being a concern, and certainly, the legislature has to agree and support and approve any redistricting proposal, but after that it has to go to the voters. So any redistricting proposal that would come forward in the future would have to be approved at a referendum by the general public as a whole. I know the mayor was also concerned about having the city's representation continue in the sense of having them remain as autonomous or districts unto themselves. And there's historically always been that sort of a districting plan where the cities kind of were a district unto themselves. And I would envision that largely that would continue. There may be some minor adjustments to that, but overall I would expect the cities to continue as kind of a building block for a district on both ends of the county. And that's something that I think it should give some reassurance to voters in the cities that overall they're going to see the same kind of representation that they've had in the past.
Legislative leaders Swackhammer and Weaver are both for the charter. Mayor Sean Hogan and most of the Common Council were for it. Hornell 9th Ward Alderman John Buckley and outgoing county legislator from Canisteo Tom Ryan were against. We'll see how the vote turns out on Tuesday night for the Steuben County Charter, and our thanks to Steuben County Administrator Mark Alger for coming on and explaining how much of the charter works.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark Alger. I'm Brian O'Neill. Coming up next, we're going to be talking with Mayor Sean Hogan and Alderman John Buckley.
Hi, this is Michelle Smith. It's been an honor to serve as your Hornell City Chamberlain for the past 2 years. I'm asking for your vote again on Tuesday, November 5th. Your vote is very important to me, and it truly does count. Thank you.
This is Mayor Sean Hogan. I have been your mayor for the past 28 years, and I just want to endorse Michelle Smith for her fine job she's done in her first term. She is an excellent city chamberlain and one that really is serving the needs of our people and our community, and I wholeheartedly endorse her and ask for you to vote for Michelle Smith.
Wait for my friend, Michelle Smith.
We're back and on the phone now with Hornell Mayor, Democrat Sean Hogan, and Hornell Republican leader Alderman John Buckley. Sean, thanks for coming on.
No problem. It's always a pleasure, Brian.
And John, thanks for joining us.
Anytime, Brian. Great to be back.
Sean, Election Day is Tuesday. First question, you had announced that you were not going to run again. What made you want to run for mayor of Hornell one more time?
Well, to be honest with you, I fully intended not to seek another term, but in the beginning around early last winter, January, February, had a number of people approach me and ask me to reconsider, and because they just at the time they didn't feel that there was any heir apparent or someone that was interested and had a true interest in leading the community. So I kind of hemmed and hawed and talked about it. I even had a conversation last February with Mr. Buckley when we were in Albany, and told him that I'm considering maybe possibly running again. I'm going to try to make a decision prior to April. After much soul searching, I made a decision that I still had a lot to offer the community. You're always fearful of overstaying your welcome and getting stale. But I feel that I have the fire in my belly. I have the commitment to the community. I have a strong council, which was another factor in wanting to run again. I think we have a common council that's probably the best in the state of working together and leaving partisan politics outside of City Hall and working together for the betterment of our community, doing some progressive things and really moving the community forward. So with the strong leadership on the council and with the lobbying of different groups, I decided that I would give it another shot, and I'm glad I did. I'm very excited about it, and if the voters want me and have me and support me, then I'll give them all I've got, and for the next few years, and hopefully during that period, other strong leadership will step up to the plate and take Hornell to the next level in the years to come.
And Sean, can you tell us the list of candidates you've got running on the Democrat side?
Well, actually, on our side, there's 7 Democratic candidates. Bob Murray, the incumbent, is unopposed in the first ward. In the second ward, there's the incumbent Jeff Brown in the second ward. In the fourth ward, Rich Argentieri is running for an open seat. It was a position held by Angelo Scotti, who decided not to run again. So Rich Argentieri is making his first run for political office in that ward. In the fifth ward, longtime Alderman Joe Foreman is running unopposed. And in the sixth, Larry Bacon is running, and he has opposition from Dan McManus. In the seventh, Fred Lehman is running in that ward unopposed, and he's seeking re-election. John Carbone in the 10th ward, a great businessman in Hornell, and he's invested a lot of his time and talent, his resources in making Hornell a better place with his business, the main place. We have the seven. We have one new face, Rich Argentieri.
And then, of course, you have the Chamberlain's race with Michelle Smith seeking re-election.
Michelle is, I think, a rising star as far as, her abilities in the financial end of the city. She has done some great things, and moved the finance office into the 21st century. We now have the ability to accept credit cards for payment of taxes and on fees for other city services. She's streamlining the office, and she's really cleaned up our annual audits. And as far as the auditors having anything to say about them, there's very few comments, mostly positive. And she's moved us in the right direction. She's very, very good finance officer.
Hornell GOP leader John Buckley, again, thanks for coming on. Can you tell us who you've got running in Tuesday's races?
Well, there's not a whole lot of competitive races in the city this year, but Alderman Randy Harkenrider is running unopposed this year. Alderman Jim Bassage in the 8th Ward is running unopposed. Myself, first time I've run unopposed in this being my third election, so I get to, I guess, take it a little easy this year as far as campaigning goes. And then you have, of course, the newcomers, the political office. Dan McManus is running against Alderman Bacon over in the 6th, and Norm McCumsky, who a lot of your listeners are probably familiar with, is running for the open seat in the 4th. Norm McCumsky, former high school teacher. I think he taught about 30 years or so. High school football coach for numerous years, decades in fact. Great guy. So there's not a whole lot of competitive races in the city this year. Unlike a couple of years ago, I want to agree with the mayor. We do have a strong council. And it's funny because you always hear about the partisan divide and Albany and Washington, and I can honestly say we do not have that in Hornell. Mayor Hogan and I, Sean's the Democratic Party chair for the county, I'm the Republican chair for the city. We can agree to disagree on state and national issues, but I can honestly say when it comes to Hornell, when it comes to local issues, we set all that stuff aside and work together for the betterment of the community.
John, there's two candidates in this year's mayoral race in Hornell. Can you tell us, if you'd like to, are you backing anyone in the mayor's race for Hornell?
Yeah, I am. I'm glad you asked because when voters go to the polls on Tuesday, they have a clear choice as to who they want to lead the city in the next 4 years. And for me, there's really only one choice, and that's Mayor Sean Hogan. On one hand, you have Mayor Hogan, who provides just a wealth of knowledge, years of leadership experience, and honestly, when something happens, Sean is a great guy because he knows everyone in the state. Brian, I went to Albany with Sean, back in February, and I said this on your show before. Sean Hogan is a rock star in Albany. Everyone who's anyone knows who Sean Hogan is in Albany. So that sort of thing comes in handy because when something happens, and I'll take the sewer situation down on Elm Street. When something like that happens, Sean can pick up the phone and he knows the right people to call to get things to get things in the works, to get things done. So, from an experience standpoint, the chuck goes to Sean. From the leadership standpoint, it does. I just think there's, it's an easy choice going to the polls. It's Sean Hogan. Nothing against Joe Duffy. I think Joe's a great guy. He's run a few times before. Provides people with a choice at the polls. Nothing wrong with that. That's our system. But when you go to the polls, it's not a referendum. It's a choice, and for me, the choice is clear, and that's why I'm supporting Sean Hogan.
Mayor Hogan, your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm very humbled, and I'm not often speechless, but I'm in my 28 years as in office and running opposed and unopposed, I've never had a Republican leadership step up to the plate and endorse me as John has done, and I'm humbled by that. I'm just very appreciative of his kind words, and I've been lucky to have worked with John over the last couple of years, and when we kind of felt each other out, and we came to the conclusion that we can work together for the betterment of our community, and I think we've shown that, and I think John's an up and coming leader, and it's not it's a leader in our community, and I think a voice people have come to respect. So I certainly appreciate that, John, and I hope I can live up to your confidence, and I will continue to work with you and the full council, and we're going to make.
Well, if you don't, I'm there to let you know, Mayor.
Yeah. So that's very nice, and I'm very appreciative.
Down to just a couple of minutes now. We're talking with Hornell Mayor Sean Hogan and Hornell Republican leader John Buckley. Sean, if I could ask you about the dog and cat census, how did that work out?
Well, it worked out well. As far as we know, we have about 1,300 dogs and about 1,200 cats in the community. We have been licensing them on an ongoing basis, and we are, working with the Humane Society on enforcement. Yesterday, we had some abandoned cats that they responded to on the riverbank over on Walnut Street and Davenport Street in that area, and so it seems to be working well. I think we're on the same page, and it's kind of calmed down. The situation has kind of come down. I think we're responding to people's needs. The Humane Society did do a couple of feral cat colonies, but no, that's a separate issue. The issue is people taking responsibility for their pets, making sure that they're spayed and neutered, making sure they have their shots, and making sure that they know where they are and they're not being a nuisance for somebody else. That was the issue. And I think we got kind of mixed up between the feral cat situation and the individually owned cat. And I think people are stepping up to the plate, and I think the situation has calmed down. Now, John, I don't know if you feel that way, but I think it's calming down.
Yeah, it is definitely getting better. The legislation that the council passed, I think, was a benefit to the residents that were having troubles, and I think just having that legislation in place and people becoming aware of it makes them more responsible pet owners, and dog owners went through this some years ago. But Brian, I know you're running short on time. I just wanted to share one quick story. The mayor and I had a little offline conversation earlier about the political season. It can be silly season, and I had someone approach me earlier in the day, and they were kind of making light of the endorsements in the newspaper. Oh, a Democrat was endorsing a Democrat, or Republicans endorsing a Republican. That's not news. Well, hopefully we made a little news today by myself endorsing the mayor. So
I guess so. Well, John Buckley, thanks for joining us today.
Anytime. Always glad to be here, Brian.
Mayor Sean Hogan, thanks for joining.
It's a pleasure. And, again, thank you, John, and I'm very humbled by your endorsement.
No problem, Sean. I just calling it like I see it.
Thanks to Mayor Sean Hogan and Hornell GOP leader John Buckley.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Have
thank
a great
you, Brian.
weekend.
Hornell Green Party mayoral candidate Joe Duffy coming up next here on AM 1480 WLEA.
Hornell DeWitt Best Home Center.
Now liquidating all store stock, including treated lumber, now 25% off. Exterior door units at 20% off. And inside the strawberry basket, a whopping 40% off. Everything must go. Please use gift certificates and radio bucks now. Hornell Do It Best Home Center, Route 70A, closing its door for good. Save 15 to 40% store-wide, but hurry in for the best selection.
We're back now on the line with Hornell Green Party mayoral candidate Joe Duffy. Joe, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you bet. It's a pretty good day. It's a little windy out there, but it's a good day to talk politics.
Hey, Joe, on politics, what makes you want to get into the race?
Well, I want to give a choice to everybody, and I think that, and hopefully other people will step up at some point along the line and run for office. We just need more people to step up and give more choices to the populace.
What would you do differently if you were the mayor of Hornell?
Well, I'd give a little different perspective, a new perspective. And there's this participatory budgeting that's going around in these bigger cities like Buffalo and Rochester and New York City, where actually it's real money and you decide how it to be used. Through participatory budgeting, you can propose ideas to improve your community, turn these ideas into real projects, vote to decide which projects get funding. So participatory budgeting gives you real power over real money. Okay, and it also connects you with it connects officials with the residents. So they're both involved in their communities and hopefully in the Common Council.
Joe, you're a Green Party candidate. Do you have much connection with the National Green Party?
Oh yeah, the Green Party. We're in touch all the time. I'm the chairman of the Steuben County Greens here in Hornell. So yeah, we're in touch all the time with the National Green Party.
And at the Hornell level, what would the Green Party stand for?
It would stand for economics. I mean, we're fair-minded. We don't accept corporations' money at all. We feel that money should be stamped out of politics, and that's part of the whole problem with politics right now. And especially now with the Supreme Court that allows unlimited funds to be channeled into any candidate. I just read this article about where there's 10 corporations who have put into political action committee funds, and that these in New York City or in New York State, and they don't have offices in New York. They don't even have headquarters here, but they're putting a lot of money into politics in New York. So that's one of the biggest things, is to get money out of politics.
To get money out of politics. So that's one of the big movements for the Green Party at the local levels?
Oh, definitely. That's probably the reason why we're so poor. We don't want the influence of big money to determine what the ordinary citizens should be able to determine on their own.
Joe, wondering, some local issues, does the Green Party have a stance, or do you have a stance on things like wind energy, solar, renewables, fracking, issues like that?
We're for renewable energies. It's just that, laws need to be put in place so in case something... Well, let's take an example. This wind power, so laws were put in effect after 20 years of life of the wind power structure itself. What do you do with it after that? Well, they've agreed that they'll dismantle it and take care of the scrap when it becomes obsolete. That should go for any process, such as drilling for oil or hydrofracking. I mean, if your well goes bad, I think they should be responsible to have good water for that property if they leave the property. They should, when they get on the property, they should leave it just the way it was when they're leaving, when they got there. So we need laws to protect the people against things that go wrong that companies will not become responsible for if they don't have to be.
Well, Joe Duffy, those issues mostly, except for solar, don't affect Hornell. At the Steuben County level, have you had any experience in dealing with those issues, such as wind energy or fracking? Has your input been sought, or have you made your views known on this to any of the, like the Steuben County IDA or any organizations like that?
Well, we've gone to Albany. There's a lot of Green Party people who've gone to Albany and voiced their concern about hydrofracking, definitely.
Well, before we go, we're down to just a couple of minutes. Any final thoughts, Green Party mayoral candidate Joe Duffy?
The biggest issue I think we have is people need to vote. If you want a voice in politics, you need to step up and vote. Unfortunately, we're on the average of the national scene. About 20% of people vote in Hornell. There's about 4,600 registered voters. Maybe 1,000 people vote. So I would say get out and vote. You don't have to vote for Green Party or Joe Duffy, but get out and vote for a candidate you think is good for that position.
Hornell Green Party candidate Joe Duffy running for mayor of Hornell once again. How many times have you run, Joe? Is this the second or third?
Well, this is the second time really being on the ballot. The first time was a write-in candidacy that's pretty hard to do for a write-in.
Sure. Well, Joe Duffy, thanks for joining us this weekend.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Also, our thanks going out to Mayor Sean Hogan, Alderman John Buckley, and Steuben County Administrator Mark Alger. I'm Brian O'Neill. Stay with us. Do us best. Ask the experts. Coming up next here on AM 1480 WLEA.